Federal law enforcement officials are deeply concerned about that threat, issuing some stark warnings. ABC's senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has the latest.
Islamic radicals, some more ruthless than al-Qaeda, overrunning cities in Iraq. Al-Qaeda fighters just across the border in Syria, training, learning, killing. Two conflicts joined by extremists from around the world. Some of them, like this young man, are Americans. Al-Qaeda claims they turned him into a suicide truck bomber who did this in Syria. Top U.S. officials fear what's happening thousands of miles away could become a clear and present danger for the homeland here.
The next 9/11 is in the making.
In recent exclusive ABC News interviews, FBI Director James Comey and Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson issued stark warnings.
Syria has become a matter of homeland security.
At least 70 Americans are believed to have joined the thousands of foreign fighters in Syria.
With my European counterparts, we've been working together on sharing information, tracking these individuals.
Sources tell ABC News some of those potential terrorists have already made their way back to the U.S.
Can you give us a sense of how active you are at making sure that you're keeping an eye on those people?
Very active. The civil war there is offering an opportunity for thousands of foreign fighters to get training in the worst arts of terrorism.
And just this week, the FBI director was equally blunt, appearing before Congress.
We are determined not to allow a line from today's Syria to be drawn to future 9/11s.
The radicals are flowing back and forth over a porous border between Syria and Iraq. And they've done more than take over cities in Iraq. They've captured military equipment and millions in cash.
Al-Qaeda now has hundreds, perhaps, of millions of dollars they didn't have before, which they can use to buy equipment and move people around.
Including possibly to the U.S. homeland. For This Week, Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
With us now, Congressman Michael McCaul, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and Martha is back with us from Baghdad. Mr. Chairman, let me start with you. You issued a statement saying the president should take immediate action in Iraq. What do you think he should do?
Well, this is a crisis. It does recall a response, not going to Palm Springs for a fundraiser. I talked to Ambassador Crocker yesterday. He said that this is the greatest threat, national security threat, since 9/11. Al-Qaeda owns more territory, more resources, and what's happening in Iraq right now is really chaotic. I think what needs to be done, the White House called me and asked me for my advice. I would call the top team of commanders and diplomats who won this war, and I would get their advice as to what to do moving forward. But I can tell you, it's a president's inability to negotiate a status of forces agreement in Iraq, which has put us in this situation that we're in today.
But I'm asking the immediate action. You're not just calling for him to get advice. I mean, do you think that he should take military action right now?
I think he needs to look at his options, but I'll tell you, in talking to the ambassador who knows the situation better than anybody, he believes that a diplomatic political solution between the Sunni, Shia, and Kurds needs to take place now. Hagel and Kerry need to be in the region, getting a regional strategy together with our allies to deal with the situation, because, you know, look, without their cooperation against the extremists, this is not going to happen. They're not going to do it on their own. They need us to lead them, and we're not leading right now as a nation.
Now, when the president addressed this issue on Friday, he twice used the word eventually when talking about the threat that this group would pose to U.S. interests. What is your sense? How far down the line until these people we see marching in towards Baghdad pose a threat to the United States?
This al-Qaeda faction, ISIS, in Syria and now in Iraq, is so extreme that Zawahiri and core al-Qaeda have denounced them. That's how dangerous they are. This is not some down-the-road prospect. I would argue that not only is the threat great in Iraq and Syria, but so to the homeland, because we have a lot of individuals over there with legal travel documents that are trained, and these are the vicious, the worst of the worst. If they get back into the United States or in Western Europe against Western targets, I see that as the biggest threat today.
So let me turn to Martha. And Martha, you're there on the ground. We see that black flag of al-Qaeda flying over Iraqi cities. What is your sense on this group's vision, and how much does attacking American interests, American targets, fit into their plan?
I think there's no question this is a group that is anti-American, and if they could attack America today, they probably would. I don't think they're ready for that, but look at the equipment they're getting. Look at the other people who are joining them in the fight. It is total chaos over here right now. I cannot stress that enough. Here in Baghdad, people are truly afraid. They think they're going to be attacked. And when you look at the Western interest around here, there are a lot of Americans here. There are a lot of Westerners here, and you can be sure they would try to target them.
And you know, you think about this, Mr. Chairman, the reports out of Nineveh province that this group has seized some $400+ million out of Iraqi banks. This could be a much more well-funded, well-equipped al-Qaeda than we have seen.
Of course, and they have $500 million now in new cash infused. They have our weapons now. It's a highly good recruiting mechanism for them. What we really have, John, is a vacuum. And the vacuum is being filled by this extreme al-Qaeda faction. But also what concerns me is that Iran is moving in as well. So we have this Shia brethren concept, but don't think for a minute that Iran's not looking at this vacuum as a potential power grab as well, and I think we need to be very cognizant of that fact.
Well, does it give you any unease that if the United States acts militarily here, we will be acting, in a sense, on the side of the Iranians? I mean, the Iranians have also, reports are, moving in to fight this faction on behalf of the Iraqi government.
Right, and that's why we have to be very careful with any military strategy. I think diplomatically, we've got to bring the Sunni Shia Kurds together against the extremists. Maliki has failed, as well as our president, without the status of forces agreement. He failed to engage in the Sunni tribal leaders to stop this, and now the blowback is happening. But we need to stop this, but the action needs to be now, not 2 weeks down the road. The president should come back to the White House, get a team of experts together.
Just very quickly, you heard Lindsey Graham say we may be seeing another 9/11 in the making. Do you agree with that?
I believe it's one of the biggest threats that we see. When you look at the terrorist training ground operations in Syria and Iraq, I believe it is one of the biggest threats. And if I could just deal with this, I talked to a Gold Star mother in my district, and it's resident of many of those out there, just saying that, you know, my son died in Fallujah. He believed in what he was doing, and I just wanted to count for something. And what I'm seeing today makes me sick, I don't want to have to question that.